Hi, I'm Rodney. I'm the president of the IWCC, or Web Series Canada. We're doing a series of videos with some sponsors of Teal Webfest, but some great supporters of the community. They've done some great work with web series all across Toronto. Joining us today is Adam Whitener from AstroLab. Adam, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi there. Thanks, Rodney. So, as you mentioned, my name's Adam from AstroLab Studios, and I'm the founder of AstroLab and been a supporter of TO Webfest for the past few years, and very happy to be involved.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do at AstroLab?
Yeah, so basically, what we have here is sort of like I like to call like a boutique sort of studio offering. Essentially, we have soundproof stages to shoot in. Really, at the end of the day, is kind of what it boils down to, as well as equipment rentals in house. So we've got sort of everything from your electrical, lighting, and all the sort of grip needs that you might have for most size productions. Speaking of sizes, we typically tend to work with a lot of independent productions, music videos, and corporate content. And then we dabble a little bit into some larger things like bigger budget commercials, as well as supporting the feature and TV industries, mostly with like press days, gallery shoots, and things like that. So sort of like tertiary support for those industries. But our bread and butter, or sort of our day to day, I would say, is mostly on the sort of the smaller end productions.
Where in Toronto are you located right now?
So we're on the lot of Revival Film Studios, which is at 629 Eastern. It's just basically just east of the core, kind of in the studio district, if you will, right at like Eastern and Carlisle, pretty well.
So you're pretty easy to find.
Yeah, and there's lots of different support in the area, other studios, rental houses, and things that filmmakers might need on the day kind of thing in a pinch. So we've got lots of support in the area as well for that kind of thing.
So tell me a little about how you guys work with independent creators.
Well, I would say that, like sort of the biggest thing and something that we do for every production is really like making them feel kind of at home and giving them access to knowledge and connections that they might need along the way, even before they ever show up here, sort of becoming an extension of their team and almost like another producer, if you will, or kind of like a fixer that can help them solve problems that they might have, or even introduce them to the idea that problems that they may not have thought of might exist and help them head those off. So that's something that we do, with really all of our clients, but especially on the independent side. Oftentimes we're working with people who have never shot in a studio before and they don't even know what questions to ask. So we're really helping them kind of figure that out and, again, get ahead of anything that they may not have thought about. Something else, really depends on the project, but if it's a message that we believe in or a message that we feel needs to be championed and hasn't been shared, we can often also kind of help on a financial standpoint, not so much as putting money into the project, but perhaps reducing our rates slightly to kind of help. We know that these productions are working on tight dollars, so we want to kind of help them so that more of their money can go on to screen. So there's always a balance there because we are running a business, so it's like we got to be really careful. I could shoot myself in the foot pretty quick if I'm just giving it all away, like got to keep the lights on. But we do, if it's, again, a message we believe in or feel that needs to be shared, we do like to support. And especially if it's something that kind of comes our way a little bit more last minute and we've got available space and we can kind of work around availabilities, then we have a lot more flexibility to help out. And we do often offer some kind of support in that way for more independent productions.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so you have a bunch of productions coming through your studios. You have features, TV shows, short films, and web series. How do you like work with the producers to get to get help them get their web series created?
Um, I think this kind of jumps off the last question pretty nicely. I mean, as I mentioned in my last answer, that we kind of, help people sorting out their problems and figuring things out before they ever come here. So that's something that we do, with everybody. And I think that is really helpful. Like for perhaps they have a certain shot they want to achieve and they're not really sure exactly how they would achieve that in the studio. We can help them determine what, you know, perhaps what type of gear they might need to use for that, or even sourcing somebody, a specialist who can help them bring that shot to life, and making that connection for them, getting them connected with those folks so that they can achieve what they're looking to do. We can really be as hands-on or hands-off as a production requires. Some productions that come through don't really want any help, and they're like, no, we're good, we've got it. Whereas other productions, we may even be helping them with like a lighting plan, like, they'll kind of show us this is what we want to achieve, and we'll say, oh, cool. So if that's what you're looking to do, you might want to have, this light here, this light there, and looking with what we have in our inventory here, helping them determine, what exactly to use, and even as going as far as like where might they place it on the floor to really achieve that look they're going for. So it really depends on the production and their needs. I mentioned that we're sort of like a boutique studio, and the reason that we say that is that we cater and tailor depending on the needs of each client. So, if they were looking for that kind of insight and help, we're really happy to give it, because like that's more fun for us than just being like, oh, here's the studio, have fun. Like the more we can get involved, the better. Like that's what motivates us to do what we do and to keep this place going. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
So the budgeting phase is the best time to talk to you guys, and would you encourage producers to actually have a conversation with you rather than just getting a quote?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, the earlier that you can reach out to us, the better. Um, we'll often get productions that will contact us where they have everything locked in and now they're calling for the studio, and it's like, well, we don't have availability then, but maybe there. And they're like, nope, no flexibility. Like everything's locked in, talent, this and that. So we have no flexibility whatsoever. And so from a scheduling standpoint, definitely it makes sense, like the earlier the better, that we can then kind of look at what might work and then hopefully schedule other things according to that. And then also from a budgeting perspective, perhaps we can get involved and help on the project. So the earlier you talk to us about that, the better, right? Because that could impact decisions that are made on other things that have nothing to do with the studio. Such as like, maybe are you going to hire this one person, or are you going to be able to get that lens package or whatever it is, right? Wherever those dollars might be going. Talking to us first and figuring out what exactly is the cost going to be, can help make some of those decisions.
Have you found any like unique needs that web series have had to ask for? Like, different productions are always different, but with web series, there's a slightly different way of doing things. Even with more veteran filmmakers, where they have to be a little more creative. Have there been any kind of requests that have come your way?
Um, I can't really think of any specific examples. I would say that there are always, so I don't want to say weird requests, but unique requests that come our way. I'm struggling to think of a good example of anything right now. But what I will say is that most of them are pretty scrappy, if that's the right word to use. So, or resourceful, maybe, is another way to put it. So if there's something we haven't been able to solve or say yes to, that I think that the independent producers usually find a way to make it work, regardless of that. But we always try to, even the strangest requests, we try to find a way to make work. I think the only thing we've ever really had to say no to was water, because we don't have drains in the studio. So, we had people that wanted to basically like fill the space with water, and, we've had to say no to that. But we've had other ones where they want to throw paint at each other because there was a fight that happened and they wanted there to be paint involved in the fight. And, we allowed that to happen, made that work. So I wish I could think of other examples, because there are always sort of odd requests that you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming, or no one else has ever asked that before. But yeah.
All right, excellent. What are some things that some producers should think about with regards to the space rental?
Um, Generally speaking, I would say, like, not even just, looking at AstroLab, but just looking at studios in general. I would think the most important thing to look at is, like, does it have the support you need to achieve what it is that you're looking to do? For example, does it have in-house gear rental? Are there in-house staff that can support you? Is it located in an area where other vendors and resources are? Um, is it soundproofed? Is a big one. In a pandemic world, there are now other considerations that are really important, such as, is it clean and does it feel safe? Like, will your crew and talent feel comfortable in the space? That's a big one. Does it provide the ability for you to keep people separate? Because you can no longer work in a world where you would have a big open warehouse space and just throw all your teams in there and have all your teams working on top of each other. That can't happen anymore. So, does it have a section where you can keep maybe your art team, and an area where wardrobe can live, and that are kind of all separate? I would say is some of the more important things to think about. Yeah.
Actually, that sounds like a great checklist to work off of. Like, what kind of support do you provide? Do you have in-house rental?
Yeah, so we have in-house equipment rentals, and the way that we've structured our pricing is basically, like, we don't really want to nickel and dime, and, like, oh, you need another C stand, that's $10, and, like, we're not really interested in getting into that game. What we prefer to say is, let's work out a flat rate that will get you the studio and access to everything that we own. We have two studio spaces here on the same floor. Pre-pandemic, we used to book those out separately, so we may actually have two productions running in the space at the same time. Now, because some of the areas are shared, such as the load-in elevator, the hallways, the main restrooms, each studio does have its own sort of kitchen, own production space, like areas for other things, but there are some shared spaces. And because productions now need to be able to have full control over how many people are in the room, or in the building rather, and how close of contact people are coming into with each other, we really can't do that. So now we're basically saying, we'll book you into our bigger studio 1, and then give you access to all the gear that we have here for one flat rate. And it's priced so attractively that even if you only needed a couple lights and a couple things, it's still going to be worth it, economically speaking, to go that way. And then you don't have to worry on the day, because that's one of the most stressful things, is when you're midway through the day, you realize you need something. If it's on a weekend, you might be totally boned because nothing's open. Or even if it's a weekday, now you need a PA or a driver or somebody to make a run. Maybe the rental house doesn't even have what you need. It can be really stressful. So we've got more gear than pretty much most productions could ever need. So it's like, there's that comfort in knowing that no matter what comes up, probably we'll have an item that will be able to solve that for you. And it's not going to cost you more. You don't have to worry about it from a budget perspective. You've already paid, you're covered. You can pick and pull however you choose, all day or throughout your week, however long you're here for.
Okay. Any other services you actually offer on site? You have props, for instance.
We don't have props. We do typically have some flats and jacks kicking around. Sometimes more, sometimes less. We sometimes will donate them. We at one point had a huge stockpile of them, and they were starting to get in the way for people and having to be moved around all the time. So we actually donated a bunch away. We unfortunately don't really have space for props. Props is something that we initially wanted to get into, but what ended up happening was we kept building out the gear, and we acquired this one major gear acquisition that basically took over like every inch of the space that we have. It's actually, like I said, it's almost kind of too much at this point. So we really just don't have the space for it. But on what I will say is that we are lucky enough to be located like, I don't know, maybe 2 blocks or very, very short distance from Mojo Props, which is one of the biggest in the city. And at Mojo, you can find whatever you might be looking for. They have an insane amount of props to pick through. And like I said, they're very, very close by. So although we don't have that in-house, it is very easily accessible to our clients.
It's almost as if you planned it.
Exactly.
Okay. What kind of support do you provide in regards with COVID?
So we do have quite an extensive list of sort of what we expect from productions, what productions can expect from us when it comes to COVID, which I'll just kind of point to my website for that. If you go to any page on my site, it's right at the top. You cannot miss it. There's a big red thing like read here about our sort of COVID guidelines for safe production. But overall, I think, what people can sort of expect from us is we've always been known for providing a clean space. So that never changed. But what we have done is increase that cleaning. So now every night we have staff that come through and spray down all the handles, light switches, like anything that gets touched often is being sprayed down with a sanitization spray. So just extra cleaning is happening. We also provide every production who comes in with sprayed bottles it's basically an 80% alcohol that's safe for gear as well, and can basically just be sprayed all over everything. And then we do require, of course, like any other sort of public space in Toronto, we do require mask or face coverings to be worn inside the space. We have a whole other sort of list of things, but mostly it is like we will support and offer guidance to productions that aren't really sure what to do. If maybe it's their first time kind of back since the pandemic has hit and they don't really know, like, what do we need to make sure we're following the rules and being safe? We can 100% consult with them and help them figure that out. And we do have access to medics if they would like to go that route. If it's a larger production perhaps and they want to have an on-site medic, we have connections for that. And really going through the whole sort of checklist of things to be thinking about, such as even having like forms that crew and everyone on site will complete each day that just goes through the typical questions like, have you traveled? Do you have any symptoms? And all of that sort of stuff, so that they're at least covering from a sort of a legal standpoint to say that, they're at least doing the best that they can to ensure that everybody on site is, safe and not showing symptoms and that kind of thing. So we can really offer a lot of guidance, but at the same time, on the flip side, it is really up to the productions to ensure they're following guidelines. We can only, show them what the guidelines are and help guide them to those guidelines, but it really is up to them to adhere to them. We aren't here to kind of police what productions are doing. So yeah, but we do want to offer a safe space, and that's also part of why we aren't booking multiple productions anymore. It's going to hit us financially to do this, unfortunately, and will mean that oftentimes one of our studios might sit empty because the production that's here doesn't want both studios. They only want the one. But that's something we have to do because we need people to know that they're safe when they're here and that they're not going to have to worry about coming into contact with another group that perhaps isn't being safe and isn't following precautions. So.
Okay, great to know. It's a brave new world of COVID out there.
Yeah. So far, I'm really impressed with what we've seen here. From the crews that are coming through and people that are working in the space, everyone is being very, very cautious, I think, and taking this very seriously and sort of following the guidelines. The best place to look for the guidelines is Section 21's health and safety guidelines for COVID. They're very exhaustive, and they have basically for each department, they have sort of different, like, for hair and makeup, how do maybe they handle what they do. Because each department, there's obviously very specific things that only apply to that department. So there's sort of like overall things to be thinking about, and then for each department. So I would suggest as a first start, if somebody's kind of never really even looked at this stuff, Section 21 Just Google that even, or go to our site and it's linked there. And you'll find those guidelines, and that's a really good place to start.
Well, are there any words of encouragement that you would like to give to producers?
Um, I would say I think this is kind of a sales thing, but often as a producer, selling is what you kind of need to do. You're selling your idea, whether it's selling it to try and get finances or selling it to get the right people involved in the project to work on it, selling it to the talent that you want to have on board. I would say that if you have an idea that you really believe in, don't worry that you're going to get some no's along the way. People will say no to you. Don't let that discourage you. If you really believe in it, let that drive you forward, and you will find the yeses that you're looking for. And it'll be the right yeses. The people who said no along the way wouldn't have been the right fit anyway. So it's good that they said no to you. Let that fuel your fire and find the yeses.
Adam, thanks again for joining us and giving us all this great information on AstroLab. It's great to see you guys working very actively with the web series community. Can you tell us how we can find you?
So the website is just our name, AstroLab, and then instead of .com, it's .studio. So astrolab.studio, no S at the end, .studio. And then to find us on social, it's just at AstroLab Studios with an S at the end. And thank you for having me here today.
Oh, and once again, thank you for your huge support during Teal Web Fest.
It is a pleasure.
All right, and with that, we are done.